The shuttle dropped us off at the Tisicama National Park. We had a lot of admin to do. We got our enthusiastic briefing from Ranger Pitt and we started a steep decline down to the shore. As we reached the bottom, we continued along the rocks and passed a large cave.
The cold night takes us to a place to escape the chill.
The first day of the hike starts along with the day hikers until the point where we stopped by a waterfall where day hikers are not allowed to continue.
Wake up feeling the cold.
Since the first day is quite short, we took our time and had some snacks. After that, we set off to complete the remaining piece for the day.
Nobody knows.
We arrived at the Ngubu hut at about 2 o'clock and we spent the rest of the day relaxing, and the evening we had a braai.
This old road less traveled leads to
Day 2 we set off at 8 AM. We started off with a bit of a climb, but it was another relaxed day where we didn't have to worry about any river crossings, but it was almost double the distance of day 1. There was a few ups and downs and we found our first small river crossing, but that was nothing like what we had in store ahead. We took a break and went exploring by a big rock with a view. As we continued, we found more small climbs, followed by small descents, followed by small climbs, with some small river crossings in between. Up ahead, we would find a fork in the road with a detour to go down to Blowby, which we opted to do, in spite of the advice during our briefing to go drop our bags at the hut and then come back to Blowby to avoid baboons pillaging our bags. It seemed like this was a good decision because it was quite a climb to get out of Blowby and about 2 kilometers still from the hut. We weren't really sure what we were looking for until we found the tropical island beach before us. We stopped here for quite a while, taking our time for an extended lunch.
what's seen in the distance.
When we left, we found that it was quite a steep climb to get out of there, as you can see looking down on the beach where we came from. Spent some time here waiting for a part of the group that was lagging behind. We continued and we saw some dolphins just off the coast. Then arrived at Scott's hut at around 2:30, where we settled down for the evening. This was the first night where we used a porter to carry our dinner to the hut for us. We saw a mescal yacht cut again for the second evening, trying to steal our food, this time caught on camera. Day 3 we set off bright and early at 6:30 AM. Our plan was to make the Lottering River crossing at low tide. The crossing was at the end of the day's hike, which is just before the Oakhurst hut, so we pushed quite a bit to make that. We started off closer to the shore, climbing some rocks along the way. Before long we reached the Elandsbos River, which was wide but not too deep. Some of us backtracked to where it was narrower, but you still had to take off your shoes to cross. After that we still had quite a bit of distance to cover, which we did without having too many breaks. We weren't really sure what to expect with the tides for this big river crossing, so we tried to be there as soon as we could. If it didn't look good, we could always use the evacuation route and use a shuttle to get to the hut. When we finally reached the descent to the Lottering crossing, we were relieved, but also it was a bit underwhelming because many of us were able to cross without even removing our shoes. We could see the hut on the other side of the river, so we sat down on the riverbanks and had some lunch and relaxed. We even went exploring a bit, walking up the river towards the inland. A few meters on we reached the Oakhurst hut, which had some of the best views looking out onto the mouth. For those brave enough, you could go swimming in the ocean. Day 4 we started our earliest yet at 6 AM, of course starting with a climb. We were again pushing for time to meet the mighty Blowkrans at low tide. To do this, we were aiming to complete a difficult 10 kilometers before 9:45. The first river crossing was way too easy and we were blissfully unaware of what the groups behind us would face or what the entire eastern coast was about to experience. Lucky for us, we continued unhindered, apart from all the rocky scrambles we had to do. Before long, Blaukrans was in sight, and from the high vantage point we had, it didn't look too bad to cross. We were about an hour late for low tide, but it seemed okay. There was a sign detailing the various ways to cross, which we should have paid more attention to. We were so focused on getting across the water that we didn't realize on the other side of the water there is a cliff, why they call it the Blaukrans. The better option would have been to swim into the mouth or shimmy across the rocks, but we opted to climb the ropes, as seen here on someone else's footage, because our hands were full at the time. As we reached ground level again, we were greeted with some more technical bits, and then we pushed on a little bit to find a nice beach to relax on. With the day's main challenges behind us, we felt a bit more relaxed. The fact that there was still 4 kilometers remaining would make them feel very slow. We climbed onto a plateau where we had a lot of wind, and then we started to descend into a valley. Below we found a very windy and rainy Andre camp with a beautiful outdoor shower where we had a nice braai and roosterkoeken. Day 5 we started a bit later at 9 AM because there was no rush. Crossing the Klip River proved to be no challenge, but we found ourselves searching for the route for the first time. We soon found it, and it was straight up. After the steep climb, we reached a plateau which we would follow for the rest of the day. There was a few lookout points along the way, and we could see our previous night's camp down below. On top of the plateau, we were very exposed to the elements, and the wind started picking up quite a lot. This was probably related to the big storms that were coming for the eastern coast. We reached the point where we were looking down on the Nature's Valley beach, civilization in sight. Here the winds were starting to really pick up, and it made it a little bit difficult to get down. It was a little bit anticlimactic being slowly reintegrated into society. No explicit finish line in sight. Eventually we reached the bottom and we walked along the beach. There was an option to continue via the Titsikama trail, but we were eager to finish, so the additional 4 kilometers felt quite slow. With the flooded bay, when we reached our cars they were standing in water. Luckily we were able to get them out, and we headed off to the nearest restaurant to go celebrate our victory.